Hello, my name is Dennis Forsberg, and I want to explain a few things. So, welcome to my YouTube channel. And first thing off, these are two things that I'm going to talk about. One that's photography related, and one where I discuss what this channel is about. I see on YouTube that there are a lot of channels that show all the technical stuff, like f-stoppers, um, Jared Polin, and Chelsea Northup and Tony, Chelsea and Tony. But they are all kind of tech videos explaining the tech and that sort of thing. And I don't want that. I don't want this channel to be that. This channel is about I am a photographer. I want to connect to you, the person that's listening there, and just talk to you. I want to talk to you not as a person that you see in a camera store and they talk about tech. I want you to trust me as a photographer. I have a lot of experience, studied a lot, 6 years, and then working as a photographer right now, and trying to build myself up as a company, but also working as a photographer and figuring out all the kinks. I also have an episode or a podcast called My Trip to Reality, where I actually update you every week about that, and that's what that podcast is about. But let's talk about the other thing, okay? Jessica Kobeissis. Kobeissis. I don't know. She's one of the photographers that are actually a photographer out there, and not that text sort of thing. I googled pretty quickly, like most subscribed photographers or the sort of channels, photography channels you should subscribe to, and most of them, almost 80% of them, are just tech related things. Let me ask you one thing. You learn the tech, but why? Because you want to explore the camera, right? So yeah, you have that side of things where there's a huge area of people on YouTube explaining you should do this, you should do that, that shutter speed, this aperture, the blah blah blah. But you don't have much of the hello, I'm a photographer. And I want to be that. And I know there are channels out there, but I want to be that as well. So I want to talk about Jessica Kobeissis. She made a video about what kind of camera gear you should use, okay? And she has around, I believe it's 1.2 or 1.4 million subscribers. This is not a hate video. I want to make that clear. I like the fact that she actually shows you the sort of stuff that goes behind photography, and she photographs a lot of fashion, and she shows that sort of thing. And then 5 views on how photographers, like 5 photographers shoot one model, but they're all different. I like that. I want to talk about that video because of a few reasons. I actually put up this camera now because I watched the video. I was eating breakfast and just minding my own business, wanted to watch some photography stuff, and then all of a sudden I came up on that video. I'm like, I need to talk about this. So, okay. The first thing she talks about, I put some notes up, okay? Boom. Being very transparent, okay? Now I was having a cup of coffee here. I also have a camera here, okay? Showing you all of these things around me. She is photographing with a DSLR. Now, that's fine. But that's the first thing I want to talk about. She recommended Canon, which is fine. One thing I do have a problem is when you have 1.2 or 1.4 million subscribers. This is obviously a personal thing, and she likes photographing with a Canon. I understand that. I don't want to go into like what kind of model you should go into. But I want to explain this. Mirrorless, if you heard about it, it's the new camera to go. It defeats DSLR. The reason why I want to make this video again is because she's recommending DSLR. Again, that's fine. You can shoot with any kind of camera. But if you want a great camera, you should go with mirrorless. I'm not going to explain to you why you should go into mirrorless that much. It's just better. You can do your own research. I have a video comparing mirrorless cameras as well. But let me just give you this argument, okay? Just for saving time's sake. Canon, Nikon, Sony. Big corporate brands, okay? Camera makers. Sony's making mirrorless. Canon makes DSLRs. Nikon makes DSLRs. Now all of a sudden, Canon and Nikon, the big companies that makes DSLRs, are all of a sudden making mirrorless cameras. Why? Well, if there weren't consumers for it, they wouldn't make it. That's one argument. I have several arguments, but I don't want to take up too much time. As far as lenses go, okay? By the way, the Canon camera body, for example, she talks about camera bodies, buying the body alone. Yes, I agree with that completely. Buying the camera body alone is so much better. If you buy a kit, the thing is, when you buy a kit, it's the lens that comes with is an excuse for you to actually take photographs with the body, with the camera as a set. I worked as a camera salesman and I worked at Sony. The kit lenses that I was explained to about is, think of it like this. People make the camera, okay? They make the body. Great, that's perfect. They've made a perfect, nice, good camera. But now you need a lens. But consumers don't want to pay so much. So what do? They put a regular lens on as an excuse for you to actually use the camera. As a consumer, because they do market to like the general people. They don't, they want to make money and therefore, you direct yourself to the general public. If you look at fashion companies, for example, H&M is making billions upon billions more dollars than Balmain or Gucci or Louis Vuitton. They want to make the money, okay? So therefore, as a consumer, if you're buying a camera, you also want to have a lens with that, right? Now you don't think much about the quality, maybe. You just want it to work. I want to buy this box, and in this box it should include everything. Makes it easier for you, right? So therefore you don't think about the lens that much. Buying a prime lens is a lens that you cannot zoom with. Here is a Nikon FE2. This is my favorite camera. I'm filming this on a Sony a7R II. That's not my favorite camera. This is. Now, why would you say that? This is a film camera. Why is this why is this your favorite camera? I also have Hasselblad with me. Well, actually not with me, but I have one. This, as a photographer, not technical wise, as a photographer, as an artist, this is my favorite camera. Why? Let's go into an argument here. I'm splitting these videos up a bit. I'll touch that topic soon. Hold on. Let's go into Jessica kobeissis video again. The lens. Prime lenses, 1.4, 1.8, they're great. The thing with prime lenses, like this one, you cannot zoom with them, but they got better glass inside, which means you get better image quality. You can also play around more with the aperture, so you get these blurry photographs. A zoom lens, I use a 24-70, 2.8. It's more expensive. The 24-70 f4 is less expensive. But the thing is, once you have 2.8, you can let more light in, and you have that bokeh, that depth of field in the background. You get a blurry image right here, and then you get a sharp face here, like this. If I hold the camera up here, it should be in focus, sharp, while I am being blurry. So, as an all-around lens, I've worked as a photographer for 8 years. 24-70, 2.8. That's all I gotta say. I don't want to get too much into it, as I said. I can get more in depth with it if people ask me to. Programs. She talked about Photoshop being a bit complicated, and she would still recommend it, but as a beginner, you might be confused about Photoshop. Let me explain one thing about Photoshop. I myself am still confused about Photoshop. I've used it for, well, yeah, 8 years. 8 years, okay? I'm still confused about it. I've learned the technical things in school and that sort of thing, but if it's something I need to know, guess what? YouTube. So, I agree on your topic when you say, as of batching, if you're doing a lot of photographs at once, Lightroom is the way to go. Or, I myself use Capture One. The reason why I use Capture One instead of Lightroom is because the color profiles that you get, the color, if you're into color and you want the perfect color, the program for that is Capture One. It's more in detail with color, and you get, well, better color with Capture One. Photoshop, she recommended it. I would recommend it. I wouldn't actually recommend Lightroom. Now, that's probably a controversial thing to say because a lot of people love Lightroom. I don't use Lightroom. I don't do much of batching, but when I do, that's a meme. I don't do a lot of batching, but when I do, I use Capture One because again, with the colors, you can work with a lot more with colors. Lightroom, it's a world of presets. Presets are nice, but you also want to be in control of that. You can adjust it yourself, but I just feel like Lightroom isn't for me. But Capture One is. And I also recommend Photoshop. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner. If you're doing single photographs, if you're doing batch, Capture One or Lightroom, okay? But also if you're doing batch, if you're doing a lot of photographs, Photoshop. Now, individually, if you're working on one photograph, Photoshop is the way to go. The reason is because Photoshop, it's just so much to do there. You can do very little and get great results. You can do a lot, and you might get also great results. You can also snow yourself in and work on a photograph for 7 hours like I did and go, yeah, that's okay. That the photograph is cool. All right, fine. But, yeah. So, Photoshop, if you're a beginner, don't fear, okay? If you buy the exclusive, the professional Photoshop, okay? You have a lot more to work with. You can buy Lightroom, sure. And then once you've grown out of that, because you can do so much more with Photoshop, once you grow out of Lightroom, you go into Photoshop anyways. So, Photoshop, whether you're a beginner, professional, amateur, whatever, Photoshop is the way to go. And if you are confused, trust me, YouTube or Google. That's how I even do things when I get confused. And extras, reflector, that's cool. Reflector is really good because you're working a lot with light and you're actually understanding how light reflects onto a subject. She also talks about prism. Prism, I mean, it's a cool effect, but as a beginner, and this is where I go on to this thing now. As a beginner, you want to understand the basic things. Prism is fun. It's a fun thing. It's like adding a filter onto Snapchat, okay? It's an extra thing, as she said, extras. But knowing and understanding the core of things, and this is where I guess the video becomes more interesting. I want to compare an iPhone with a DSLR or with a camera, okay? The best camera you can have is a film camera. Why is that? Well, let's put it like this. If you are a beginner, DSLRs, there's a lot of configurations to do. The menu setting, oh my god. 5 or 50, 60 things to set up. okay? Confusing. I'm talking to you now as a photographer, as an artist, as that sort of photographer, not tech, okay? iPhone. The thing with iPhone, the thing with Samsung, the thing with smartphone is that when you photograph with your phone, it's not the same thing. And if you're really into photography, you should invest in a film camera. The reason why an iPhone, a smartphone, is not ideal for photography is because to get into that zone of photography, appreciating the little things, finding something super interesting in snow or grains of sands or like the abstract things of trees, things like that, you're not gonna get into that zone. The reason being is when you're photographing, you do realize that that phone is not a camera. It's also a way to pay your bills. It's also a way to watch Netflix, YouTube. It's a way to play games. And then while you're photographing, ding, you get a notification that you got someone who liked your photograph on Instagram. You really get taken out of the zone. This is more a meditation thing, I guess. Think of it as meditation of things. The meditation of photography. The only thing you do with this is click, drag, click, drag. That's it. With DSLRs, you snow yourself into 60 things to think about. Should I shoot RAW or JPEG, or RAW and JPEG? Should I use Adobe RGB or sRGB? Should I photograph within black and white or monochrome or color now? What kind of white balance should I do? Roll film, put it in to this, and shoot. That's it. And also, the thing that most people say, you have 24 to 36 photographs in this camera. You better make it count. With an iPhone or a smartphone, you can photograph a lot. You can delete the photo if you don't like it. Same thing with the DSLR. It's a thing of getting to the core of things. This is the core of things. I think it's very important for you to understand that. If you're really into photography, you should think about film camera. It's to its essence, that's where it all started. And there's a reason for it. And you do get into that meditative state of being focused on just the camera. Just the camera. Not worrying about battery life. That sort of thing. I'll go to 20 minutes to make it clean. All in all, the camera I would recommend for you as a beginner is the Sony a6000, okay? I'm not a person who talks about brands. I'm not a person who's into a certain brand. This is my favorite camera. It's a Nikon right here. I'm filming on a Sony. I also have a Hasselblad as well. I'm Swedish. So there's no specific brand here, and I know there's a community out there that talks about like, oh, you're Sony Pro, you're Canon Pro. I'm just saying mirrorless is the way to go if you're into photography. If you really want to understand photography and become more aware of what you're shooting, again, boom, film camera. Yeah, that's it. If you do have any questions, if you do have any things that you want me to talk about, I will gladly talk about them. You can leave a comment or you can email me at contact@dennisforsbergphotography.com. You can follow me on Instagram at dennisforsbergphotography. And yeah, be sure to subscribe and like the video if you truly like the video. And if you listen to the whole thing, because I know the attention span right now on internet is 3 seconds, I think. Thank you so much for watching.